Welcome to our Night of Nights. To celebrate, we have gone all out with Daniel Long joining us from the Casual Athlete YouTube channel. Thanks for coming in.
Amazing to be here. We're a couple of weeks removed from fantasy, but a lot to talk about.
Absolutely. Also, Eric Wells from the Late Mail Crew podcast. First time joining us live. Thanks so much for taking the trip down south.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
It's great you could be here.
Oh, glad to be invited, mate.
And of course, I'm Paulie G, and with us as always is Luke Seifleet, our resident fantasy expert. How are you, mate?
I'm loving life with these two people here. It's good. We got our big man here, carries the Discord, and we got our casual athlete over here, the YouTube master. So let's rock and roll.
Let's do the awards, shall we? We have got Cash Cow Cheapy Comeback Award, but first let's go through the best in each position. And what's your nomination for wing fullback, Longy?
Mate, this is a surprise pick, but it's a guy who started the year at 400k. If you started with him, congrats to you. I didn't believe early on, and by the time I did believe, he was too expensive. Yeah. He scored 24 tries this year, and his name was Jermaine Asako. So one of the most improved players in the comp. A guy who's had a lot of opportunities over the years, but really just took it with both hands this year. And even when the Dolphins were struggling down the stretch, he was producing scores of 70 plus in your head-to-head finals. So if you're playing him in that way, you had a great time with Asako. 50-point average, 24 games, highest total points, irrefutable.
Goes to show goal-kicking wingers
it helps.
that score lots of tries, they can be relevant in the wing fullback position. Eric, you went against your team, the Knights, but did go for a dominant fullback, which is more traditionally does well in this position. Who was it?
Drinkwater. I think the Cowboys just had that amazing run, and the draw just helped out them a lot to pick a lot of Cowboys, especially during that early bye area. But yeah, he put up a very, very strong argument, I think.
Those that got on him just before Origin, that's the people that really made a lot of money and scored a lot of points. Yeah, there was another big name fullback, and I did sort of preference, which is Eric's team, of course, Luke, that is Newcastle, and we can't leave out the captain, can we?
Well, is he the greatest non-Origin player now? Let's be serious. I mean, like Longy said, he was cheap as chips. People were really scary about picking him because they're like, oh gee, concussions, injuries, what's going to happen with him? He came back and went bang as soon as he went to fullback.
Yeah, Caleb Ponga.
He just went nuts. I mean, he was basically their whole offense. Like without him, he was just connecting all. And then he started goal kicking. Seriously, like he was
going that well.
That last few weeks, he was literally just getting 60s in his sleep.
Well, you've made a good case for him to win the wing fullback of the year, but we're going to announce it now. The winner is Scott Drinkwater. And pretty well deserved, I feel like. You know, how did you feel, Longy? Good year for him.
Cracking year. Look, 50 average, it doesn't really tell the full story though. The thing with Drinkwater is that when you brought him in just before Origin, he produced in those important bye rounds with massive scores. He was borderline a captain option for the Origin period as well, and he turned up in those games. So we can't just look at the average. I think we have to look at the guy and the context when people were buying him, and if they produced when they were needed. And he produced big when he was needed.
Well deserved. Moving on to centre, and I get a feeling we may have some more consensus here. Back to you, Longy. Who's your nomination?
It's got to be another surprise packet. So Dan Gagai, he came into this year. He's been playing for a long time, and we thought we knew who Dan Gagai was, but this new model came out. And it's a beast, 150 metres a game, he's busting tackles.
No more switch on the dial, he was just always set.
I mean, I think we got Origin Gagai through the season because he didn't play Origin.
Maybe that's why.
That was the best.
There's a theme already happening, isn't there?
Yeah, well, don't play Origin if you want to
get fancy. That's right.
I was going to say, Eric, I know you like Gagai as well.
Oh, absolutely. Especially for like the centres this year as well, was so tricky because the big names were obviously those with the DPPs. They were playing off centre, so they were more the second rowers who had that position spot. But it was just a merry-go-round between...
Well, let's keep going. Let's keep our nominations before we crown him king just yet. Luke, who did you...
I'm always going to go out of the box, but I think either for me, it's either going to be Tago or probably just a little bit of a runner-up is Lemu, but I'm going to go with Tago in the end.
Why is that Tago?
I think so.
There. And you picked him up at exactly the right
time. I couldn't have timed it any better. He looked like prime Mal Meninga against the Dolphins. He would literally I think he made the biggest fantasy player of the year, am I correct?
We might get to that
later. Might get to that, little spoiler alert.
He's nominated.
Yeah, I literally picked him up the moment he went ballistic because a couple of players are out, and it was actually a real shame he got injured because I think he would have absolutely stormed home with this award.
And I'm going to add Ruben Garrick as our third nomination. nomination. I know he was added to centre late, but he had some massive games at both centre and then at fullback when he had to fill in for Tom Turbo Jaborovich. The winner, though, has to be Dane Gagai. Eric, you said it. Stand out in the position, especially after Jack Bird and Connie Lemueli went down.
Absolutely. I think the only bad thing he did all year was just not play that last round. I think that was the killer.
A lot of players were in that boat.
Yep.
Okay, on to halves. Longy, back to you for your selection here. Who you got?
Yeah, look, another surprise packet. I think that's what I'm rewarding today. The guys who came out and they're a bit cheaper and you get them for a good price, and they just turned up for you. So Shaun Johnson has to be that guy. Look, he gained a couple of 100,000 this year. He was a real performer through the Origin period. He basically didn't miss games.
Captain option.
Yeah, you could captain him. He was going well. Like the downside is that at the end of the season he did have a few niggles.
Yeah,
he missed a couple of games,
and
but
the goal kicking.
yeah, but by then you were sort of looking at moves anyway. So I think when it was important through that Origin period, he was the half who turned up. There were a couple of other guys like Moses who was threatening, and he got big for Origin.
It all flipped.
Yeah. So
SJ's world.
So Shaun really surged up, and you can look at
good call.
DCE even, who finished with back-to-back 100s. But
You can't take all the nominations.
no, I know he's not on the list, so I want to mention him, but it's got to be SJ.
Yeah.
Eric, who's your nomination?
You got to pick Hines. He was the top overall, the top total. I think having Moylan, just them having no overlap, just really helped him. I think the Trindle near the back end. We were talking about this earlier, Longy. That having Trindle beside him started to overlap on his points, so his score started to dip a little bit by the end. But it's definitely this year, Hines.
I think if Origin 1 never happened, I think Floggy's man wins. I think.
Who have you got?
Well, I've got the old boring one. Nathan Cleary.
That's how he gets in.
You can't leave him out. Every time we have these shows or we jump on Discord, we go, who are we going to captain? I'm like, just captain Cleary.
Yeah, if in doubt.
Just captain him.
Yeah.
He's still end of the day, still the best fantasy player.
Although the winner this year went DCE.
That's I know.
Round 27.
I know, but I think the last 2 years though, because when he did that hamstring, he was out for a while, and also then, like I said before, that benefited Tungo as well, right?
Good year for halves.
100, mate.
Well, debating about who's the nomination.
We said about it all year on the shows, didn't we? People were carrying 4 or 5 halves this year.
Yeah.
Well,
I had 2 halves on the bench. I'm just rocking and rolling, 100%.
And our winner, I've got to say, a bit controversial perhaps, Shaun Johnson. Longy, you said it. The fact is his starting price, the amount of games he was available for, I think it's fair to say he wins this over Cleary and Hines, even though the other two had their fair share.
This is a good field. It's a good field, eh? Yeah. It's a good field.
It's quality. Look, he provided value to teams, right? So we look at Cleary and Hines, 19 and 20 games played this year.
Yeah.
Shaun Johnson, 24 games.
Yeah,
he just kept rocking up for you. Nico Hines, fantastic. Early in the year, 10-point drop when he plays next to Trindle.
Yeah.
So that's what cost him.
DCE you wanted to talk about?
Well, DCE, like he had that back-to-back 100-point games at the end. He was a firecracker for head-to-head finals. If we're looking at head-to-head MVP, it might be DCE potentially.
I think
but
so.
For overall, it's got to be Shaun Johnson.
Got to be Shaun Johnson.
Yeah.
I like it. Let's move on to the edge position now with a lot of big names to choose from. Eric, we'll go to you. Who do you like here?
Hopgood. Everyone's comeback story. I think most people sold and brought him back. He was one of my first this year.
Yeah.
But he played every game, 24 games. We were always waiting for him to just not get named, not get picked, and he just kept getting picked, kept starting, and just even when he was named to not start, he eventually ended up starting.
Yeah, and he was a DPP. But maybe out and out edge. Longy, you got one for us.
Yeah, I'm running Dave Fafita, but look, Hopgood's a great shout as well. For Dave Fafita though, he was in my team round 1.
Yeah.
Kieran Foran cannot be understated as an impact on players outside of him. Yeah. So we saw a massive explosion from Fafita this year in terms of his consistency.
Yes. Yeah.
He had 1 score below 40 this year. And we look at Dave Fafita and go, is he inconsistent? Well, not this year. Statistically, not this year. So
he did the tough stuff.
And he was the top average too, so he's that guy.
All right. And Luke, I know you're a massive Ola Kawadu fan, had a big year, but there was a player who went from an absolute nobody when the pre-season began to an every week starter, another sole edge.
Well, player of the year too for Bulldogs. Yep. Jacob Preston.
Tough field. Bulldogs.
Mate, mate, he was very, very good in a very, very ordinary team.
Yes.
Like especially when we talk about edges, like to Longy's point, like Fafita got better with base. Ola Kawadu was good, like just pure offense. But I feel like Preston every week, he was a bit like Tanner Boyd, a bit where you're like, oh, should I get off him now? But every week he got you 60, 65. I feel like he was just Mr. Reliable on an edge. I mean, if he was in a really, really good team, I feel like we'd be talking about him way more. I feel like this group here that we've talked about, it's going to be very interesting next year who we pick him up again. I feel like he's one of my picks again next year. I think so.
Well, let's reveal our winner, and it is Jacob Preston, a player who was just absolutely great value at the start of the year, kept climbing in price, Eric.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think he only had three games, I think, under 41 all year.
Wow.
Just consistent as, and we were talking again, Longy, earlier on, where basically there was people new to jump on him. We jumped on him and he never came off. He just had that one game off the bench, and then it didn't look that great on paper, but everyone jumped on.
That says a lot too with a team that really couldn't score tries.
Absolutely.
and usually edges you rely on.
And they had some big losses.
Workhorse.
That's right. That's what I mean. Like that's what I mean, mate.
Tackles, not just sitting out on the edge.
And that's asking a lot for a guy and he's just getting thrown into the fire. It says a lot because you think about the players in that team. There's a lot of good players in that team, and he was outright the best player on that team. So well deserved.
Let's move to the mids, and there were some big-time scorers in this position this year. We'll start with you, Longy. Who do you like as your nomination?
For the mids, it's got to be Mr. Reliable. This is one that started at the same price he finished at, basically. Isaiah Yeo, he got one score below 50 this year.
Unbelievable.
Right? He basically didn't deviate on price. He didn't get the restings people were afraid of down the stretch. We all thought he might, but Isaiah Yeo just turned up every week. And for me, Isaiah Yeo is that first pick next year, because if you start with a guy like Tedesco this year, for example, you lost a bunch of money. So Yo's going to be that guy all year.
Eric, I know you were keen on Yo as well, so I'll turn straight to Luke, because there is another guy from the Broncos you love.
I'm going to jump ahead of you, but I think this guy wins it easily. I think it's Payne Haas.
Yeah.
For me. I think he's best middle in the game. I feel like all of Brisbane's fate, everyone's fantasy fates rely on him. I feel like if you don't have him, I think you're cooked. I think he's just too good. Like, I think he's the only guy you can honestly say every week you can go, if you're really, really in trouble, you could captain him.
He's one of the only mids you'd...
A VC, like a VC. Oh, he was on my VC every week.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the whole package, isn't he? He's Lazarus 2.0, so I feel like not really upset about him. I think he's the...
And a guy did me well, and I could have gone his teammate Pat Carring because he did me well, but instead I'm going flipping it. I'm going to go the one I have my biggest regret on, and it's Corey Horsburgh. Imagine not getting him early.
I know. I hated watching every Raiders game, just not having him. It was painful.
Yeah, I got Tarpanay instead.
Oh, you guys need to watch The Casual Athlete. We sent him and DeBella. You got to get him in.
And if not for the late suspension and the injury, DeBellin could have been on this list as a nominee as well. But we need to go to the winner. And sorry, Luke, but the winner is Isaiah Yeo.
Can we protest that or anything? Nothing? Or judiciary something?
I can phone a friend here. So Rob, who came third, he was talking about how he bought Haas over Yeo, and it was a big regret of his.
Well, there you go.
So he's a guy who's qualified.
And Eric, you were on Yeo like
yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think this year that all the points were in halves and mids, and having someone so consistent, like the same argument that Luke had was just that Haas was consistent, like that high, strong scorer. Yeah. He was a VC, and Yeo can be that too. It's just for some reason every year his ownership just doesn't match his output.
That's our first Origin player too, Paul, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm seeing a trend here.
Let's go to the final position to look at in hooker, and I'll start myself this time with the guy that I love to own every single year, Damien Cook. Probably people were saying, oh, don't do it. Reece Robson could have been another option at that time, but it turned out Cookie's so consistent, and I think he thoroughly deserves a nomination. Eric, who do you have?
I've got Harry Grant. I mean, he's always got to be in the conversation, right? He's just in that outfit, and his minutes, he just had the minutes on the field.
Yep.
Longy, I know you're the same, so we'll go to Luke, your third one, and this one's quite left field.
Oh, it's very left field. Tanner Boyd for me. I feel like he was the guy. He probably gets a bit more love on this show, to be honest. I feel like we're going to talk about him a bit more.
Well, he made a lot of money.
I feel like every week,
not many hookers.
And Floggy will attest to this on Discord, on the comments. Everyone goes, "Why don't you get rid of Tanner Boyd? Get rid of him. Get rid of him. I need him to upgrade him." I'm like, but every time we did it, he got like a 60, 65, and you actually couldn't get rid of him because his break even went back down. Like every time he had one bad game, he came back. I feel like...
And I know he didn't play dummy half, but if you just look at people available at hooker, he was really the only one of value, because the other guys couldn't go up in price. They either stayed or dropped. Even Grant and Cook dropped a bit.
And I feel like that's going to be a big question next year, not to go jump into next season, but I feel like that is going to be the biggest thing next year, because outside of Harry Grant, even Reece Robson tailed off. I feel like you almost next year might have to go with a dual position hooker.
It's going to be close.
Because I feel like you got to get someone like him because they're the guys that are really going to help you. Because I feel like the hooking position's gone down a bit.
Remember, this award's not
Yeah.
when you're picking your team next year. The winner,
But shout out to Tanner Boyd. I feel like he's pretty good.
the winner though isn't Tanner Boyd. Longy, it's Harry Grant.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Well deserved, well deserved. I mean, look, it's a tale of two seasons when we look at Harry Grant versus Damien Cook.
Yep.
Harry Grant sort of started a bit hotter. He sort of kept it up through the year a bit more. Damien Cook, he finished strong. So he had 3 70-plus scores in his last 4 games, which, if you're playing head-to-head, you're very happy about that. And he probably rose some people up the ranks. So, yeah, for these two guys, they were very close. I just think Harry Grant produced for you when you needed it.
Yeah.
Cook, it was a little too late.
Yeah.
And I think next year, I'm going to go a different way with hookers. I think hookers is the place to invest next year because they've all dropped all that money now. They're all value discounts, so I'll be starting with a few of them.
Let's look at a couple of awards now that were for best performances on field. And we'll start with the best play, the best single fantasy play for 2023.
Now the Panthers looking to shift here. And up over the halfway line they go. Tungo, oh, what a step. Gets around them. Still going. Beats the hammer. Still going for the corner. Oh, yeah. What about that from foot down? What a try. Isaac Tungo with a beauty.
And it is Isaac Tungo. Luke, your man. What a play.
Yeah, I went too hard too early earlier in the show, but yeah, I mean, as I said, me and Floggy watching the game together. As soon as he got that ball against the Dolphins, I was like, here we go. I said, it's coming. It was like prime Mal Meninga down the sideline. It was some pretty ordinary defence, to be fair, but mate, he had spiders on him that game. He was outstanding, and that's why I got him. I feel like if he just kept going and going, like every play that game, not to Isaac, but just like he was untouchable.
Yeah. And a surprise one here. This is for the top fantasy score of the year. And if you haven't had a look at the fantasy app to see, you might be a bit shocked.
Yeah.
It's Tolutau Kola.
Exhilarating attack sparked by Daly. Cherry Evans last week. Straight away they're on the run. And Kola, they'll just take them on and run away. Tolu Kola. Quick play the ball for Parker. Tolu Kola. Boy, he's hot at the moment. This will be the 6th straight for Manly over the Tigers, and they're off again. They're off again. Kola was sub. Sub sets it up, and good night, baby.
And 110 points in the final round. Longy, I mean, I guess it shows Manly fullback when Turbo's back. It's pretty exciting.
Mate, Manly produced a lot of these performances. Like, he got that 110. You had Garrick at centre against the Dolphins, score 104. DC, back-to-back hundreds to finish off. Like, they're a team that can produce some fantasy points. For Kola, does he try to make a play at a fullback spot somewhere at some point? And does that convert?
Teams.
Is he the backup fullback at Manly? I mean, Garrick's a great backup as well. Like, there's a lot of questions there going into next year. Does he make the leap at centre and become a fantasy producer? Because we've seen guys do that as well.
He was definitely good when he first came in at that cheap price.
Yeah, he's got the traits.
He's got the traits. And even some people like TK got on him at the right time late in the year, and then obviously got a bit lucky coming to fullback.
There's no luck in fantasy. Only talent.
You make your own luck.
I'm devastated too. He made too much money at the back end of the season now too, so it's gonna hurt picking him up.
All right, next award is our Comeback Award, and no nominations for this. The winner, of course, could only be Bryce Cartwright. Luke, talk about the comeback.
Oh, I'm stealing your thunder here. It's your man.
Yeah, well, Guardian.
Mate, you know, every week had a bit of a tinkle in his eye, didn't he? A bit of a twinkle. Look, he got very excited.
Yeah.
We used to have all the comments coming. Cardi party, Paulie. Cardi party, Paulie.
After party.
Mate, again,
Kicked on.
again,
turned into a
perfect
week,
example of a
turned into
bloke.
month.
Perfect example of a bloke that was a little probably on the outer in the league, and he basically got down, raced up the boots, and he got down and went hard for it, and he's been rewarded because now he's got an extension of the Eels, and I feel like he made that edge spot his own. He's always been talented, but I feel like he's always just a little bit like you look at him a bit like. Not to go to compare the two, but very Fafita-like in a way that
If we had
he's super
nominations, Fafita
talented.
and Johnson would
but you're
have
always
been
like, where's the points coming from? And he actually did what Fafita did this year on a smaller scale, but his base was way better.
Base was higher, and we loved him in fantasy in those early years, but kept getting hurt, and okay, well, that's the end of that.
Like
blacklisted almost.
Yeah.
Like he was almost the bloke that you don't ever pick
Just
up.
don't.
And to Longy's point about Kohler as centre at Manly, it's very similar with Parramatta and edge back rowers because they've got the same problem. Lane got hurt the majority of the year. They've signed another back rower. Will he keep that spot and keep these numbers up? Because I feel like he's by far been the best comeback player of the year. So
Let's go to cash cow now, and it's another Parramatta Eels player, Jermaine Hopgood. Most people cashed in on him twice this year.
Yes, I think this is the first year I've ever sold a player and brought him back, and I did that a lot this year, funnily enough.
Yeah.
But Jermaine Hopgood, if you got that right.
Well, it was certainly the
definitely
first
did well.
time that someone did that twice and made considerable money both times, right? You can do it as a mistake, but this time it was right both times.
I think when I did it, it was almost I sold him and bought him almost at the same price. As there was a little dip, and I missed the dip. Like it was just, if you could look at it in hindsight, I picked him up at the perfect time.
I just want to say, Eric, too, that's a bit of a flex, not having sold and bought a player before. I've done that a dozen times.
Yeah.
You make a lot of mistakes.
Brandon's.
no, I'm with you, mate. I did Hopgood as well. I think that was an interesting one. Like, what did we talk about? We literally watched the first pre-season game when he got 70.
Yeah.
He was offloading. No, everyone. I don't know anyone didn't have him.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That first pre, everyone said, "Yeah, we're going to lock him in." Done. He was like probably the first player picked, right?
Yeah, and I think he was
easy.
What benefited him, without going too far in it, he was across from Ponga, who was on that position for that game too, which made him look like a superstar. Ponga just kind of got caught out a little bit in defensive a lot during that trial, and since then it was the best selling point for him, and everyone jumped on.
Does he play Origin next year, boys?
Oh, surely.
I thought he might this year.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm just saying, the theme we're talking about here, I think he might get a bench spot next year. So.
He should.
And it was only those couple of games for Penrith that kept him out of the talk for this role, and that's the cheapy darling of the year. It goes back to that guy we talked about earlier, Jacob Preston. Longy, just such an amazing year for the rookie.
Yeah, we talked a lot about him, but the maturity he showed to step into a tough doggy situation and produce every week physically and create tries. Absolutely ridiculous. I don't have too much more to say. He's a great footballer.
Well done, Jacob.
His biggest trait was he didn't hit the rookie wall. Every time we get a fantasy player, we go, oh, it's round 20, and you go, oh, he's cooked, mate. We've got to get rid of him. He just kept going. He kept going. Yeah, that's
so durable.
And that's a pretty good comparison. If he's paying, Bulldogs fans will be very excited if he's got the same ceiling as him. Let's be serious.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. All right, drum roll now. Some great players this year, many deserving ones, but for everything he did in the game, could have easily got the Comeback Player of the Year award, let's face it. It has to go to Shaun Johnson. What a year, Eric.
Yeah, look, another one I missed, and it was the sole reason why I just hated watching Warriors games. It was such a telling point.
Yeah.
Like there was a pivotal point this year where I made a call on a trade. It was Turbo or SJ, and my season died right then and there. And then just waited for him to stop, and he just never did. He just a little engine that could, and just blew it away.
He was one of your favourites all year.
It's so rare that a guy sort of falls off the cliff in their career at that age and then comes back.
Yeah.
And when we look at Shaun Johnson's stats, at the start of the year, you could see the kick meters had spiked.
Yes.
He was dominating next to Tamari Martin, Luke Metcalf, all these guys. The attacking stats were the bit that kept growing that was surprising.
That's what the first few games you thought, oh, it's not really changing. You'd watch him, you'd think, I don't know, but then it just went bang. That Sharks game.
Yeah, and look, I think a lot of it's coaching, like Webster. Got to give him a lot of credit. They've gone back to New Zealand. He's sort of the spiritual leader of that team,
Yes,
Shaun Johnson.
definitely.
So he's having fun with his footy. So he's a great story. Never give up in your life.
Yeah.
If Shaun can do it, you can too.
before we move on, big thing about him, did his Achilles, came back, but I feel like the big thing we've got to talk about, I know you don't want to talk about it, but I remember very first pre-season show we did, you brought up SJ, did you not? And I laughed at you, so I'm going to put my hand up. I said, mate, he's so sorry, Shaun, I said this. I said, mate, I don't think so. I think he's finished up. And mate, I think he's probably the best comeback player at that age, given the injury, going to that team. And in my opinion, I feel like he should have won Dally M player as well. But I feel like things are looking up for Shaun and the Warriors going forward. I feel they're going to be back with a vengeance next year.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. It's been a fabulous year in fantasy again. So many challenges with the odd number of NRL teams, then the Origin bye rounds throwing up some curveballs. but a well-deserved champion in overall. It was Beavers Headgear. Todd L, well done, mate. Also, congratulations to second-placed Boozed Clues as well. Nigel led all year. It was probably fair to say only the round 27 team list cost him victory. We should also shout out Brenton V, who came on our show earlier this year, ended up finishing 8th. That's a fantastic finish. Yep. Now to our special thanks. TK, Pat and Andy from the Talking League podcast. Eric, thank you for all your work on the Late Mail Crew podcast and Fantasy Discord channels.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And shout out to Tim, Scott, Ross and Cookie from the LMC team who helped out on all our videos and live shows throughout the year. Longy, a huge thank you to you and Jacob from the Casual Athlete. Terrific stuff. We definitely couldn't have done this year without you.
Yeah, it's been a blast. So keen for next year.
Yeah, and get on to the Casual Athlete. I believe you're doing stuff all pretty much in the off season, right?
Pacific Championships content right now. So if you want to get around that, international footy pre-season starts January 1st. I'll be a bit hungover, but we'll be there.
Just keep going.
That's it.
To all our crew here, DK, Jack and Boj, who keep all the shows alive, Tom, Dan and Andrew, who are our all-important producers, and then a big thank you to Luke, involved all year round in so many aspects. Also had a fantastic top 1500 result to boot this year and won our internal fantasy league.
Oh, shucks. Ooh. That's amazing. I'd like to thank my sponsors. I'd like to thank my crew.
You'll be getting a few more after
that's mate.
Season.
I'm open. It's all good.
Also the bane of everyone's head-to-head league.
That's right.
When they had an odd number, he ended up getting there.
Feels good not to be the reaper for once. It's good.
We'll be talking with our people about saying maybe next year if someone has an odd number of league, we need to have a bot.
That's right.
People get angry with that. And don't despair, of course. We'll be back in the off-season to preview all things 2024. And remember to check the app and site for all your fantasy news and highlights at nrl.com.